Welcome to Wedding Studio, the podcast from You Had Me at I Do for wedding officiants who want stronger ceremonies, steadier business, and couples who feel truly cared for. Each episode, hosts Mike and Jen share practical tips, real workflows, and lessons from actual weddings, the kind of advice working pros can use right away. Wedding Studio is produced by the team behind Studio by You Had Me at I Do, the software built to run a modern wedding business. The advice comes first. And yes, the team hopes what you hear here makes you curious enough to explore the platform. When a tip connects to a tool, they'll say so. Learn more at youhadmeatido.app. Better weddings, better business, less chaos. Now, here's Mike and Jen.
You were standing at the front of the room, and, well, it is exactly 30 minutes before the processional is scheduled to begin.
Just 30 minutes on the clock, and the string quartet is chinning up in the corner while the venue staff are tweaking the ambient lighting.
You are mentally running through your opening remarks, feeling that familiar pre-ceremony adrenaline.
But then you look out at the front rows, the absolute premium real estate of the ceremony space, and the vibe is completely wrong.
Instead of a calm, orderly sanctuary waiting for the most important people in the couple's lives, you are staring at a chaotic landscape.
Early arriving guests are literally tossing heavy winter jackets, oversized purses, and even random ceremony programs over the backs of the best chairs.
It looks like a territorial land grab. And then, the absolute nightmare scenario happens right in front of you.
A highly distressed family member, let's say the mother of the bride, rushes up to you with her eyes wide.
She drops into a panicked whisper, demanding to know where she is supposed to sit because her designated seat is currently occupied by a lonely, aggressive pashmina scarf.
Welcome to today's deep dive, where we are speaking directly to you, the weekend wedding professional.
You balance this weekend passion with your weekday life. You pour your heart into crafting the perfect ceremony script. And this 30-minute scenario all too well.
Today, we are pulling from a massive stack of sources to unpack a comprehensive guide on reserved seating without the rope line drama.
We've got veteran-efficient case studies, wedding planner crisis management manuals, and even psychological research on spatial dynamics.
Our mission today is to fundamentally transform how you view ceremony seating.
It is not a mundane decoration detail, and it's definitely not someone else's problem to solve.
It is a critical piece of the ceremony experience that requires your dedicated professional care.
By the time you reach that 30-minute mark, if those front rows look like a free-for-all, the ceremony already feels fundamentally chaotic.
The entire emotional baseline of the room has shifted from anticipation to anxiety before a single note of music is even played.
That intense rope line drama, the frantic whispers, the desperate shuffling, all of it is entirely preventable.
Prevention requires treating seating as a deeply emotional decision made during the planning phase, rather than a logistical afterthought.
We're talking about mapping out sensitive family realities long before anyone sets foot in the venue.
Breaking down the underlying root causes of that anxiety forces us to examine why these specific front seats are so volatile.
When couples ask you for reserved seating, they're rarely just trying to mathematically fill chairs in a row.
They're making a profoundly emotional request, basically handing you a map of their closest relationships.
They're trying to honor the people who raised them, making sure those key figures are front and center.
Grouping the wedding party's immediate family together ensures nobody feels banished to the back of the room.
And they might be trying to ensure that grandparents, who could have hearing or mobility difficulties, can actually experience the vows intimately.
A reserved row is never just a piece of furniture.
It is where family dynamics meet physical space.
Every single chair assignment carries the heavy weight of a relationship, which is a fascinating psychological phenomenon when you really dig into it.
Analyzing the expectations people bring to weddings shows us that the front row is perceived as the ultimate public validation of closeness to the couple.
It is a visual hierarchy on display for everyone.
When a grandmother is seated in the third row instead of the first, she doesn't just see a slightly obstructed view of the altar.
She potentially feels a profound slight, sensing that her status in the family hierarchy is being publicly downgraded in front of 100 guests.
Balancing that involves honoring the people who raised the couple while acknowledging the people who are supporting them now.
You are ensuring the physical layout of the ceremony space accurately reflects those deep and sometimes incredibly fragile bonds.
Playing this out in practice feels A lot like a high-stakes game of emotional Tetris.
You have all these distinct blocks of people, parents, step-parents, grandparents, siblings who aren't in the wedding party.
You have to fit them perfectly into a rigid grid of chairs without leaving any awkward gaps or creating explosive combinations.
I have to push back here on behalf of a lot of officiants listening who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by that responsibility.
The immediate instinct when looking at this complex puzzle is to say, wait a minute, why is this my job?
I was hired to write the vows, to guide the ceremony, and to sign the marriage license.
Why can't we just assume the venue manager has this completely handled?
They own the chairs, they set the room layout, so shouldn't they manage who sits where?
The venue manager handles the physical chairs, the inventory, the spacing of the aisles, and the local fire code.
They are managing the building, but you, as the officiant, are the custodian of the ceremony experience itself.
The venue manager is not responsible for the emotional safety of the couple or the guests, mostly because they don't know the family history.
If a dispute erupts over a chair, it instantly impacts the tone of the vows, the energy in the room, and the couple's ability to be present.
That falls squarely into your domain because you are the one standing up there trying to lead a profound moment of connection.
You cannot wait until the rehearsal dinner to discover that both the groom's mother and his stepmother firmly expect the exact same aisle seat in the second row.
That discovery has to happen early in the planning process,
Yeah.
long before the emotional stakes peak.
Equipping you with the exact tool to make that early discovery introduces a brilliant piece of conversational framing.
There's a magic question you can deploy early in your consultation process, and it goes exactly like this.
Who needs a reserved seat and who should not be seated near someone else?
That phrasing is an absolute masterclass in diplomacy.
It completely bypasses the awkwardness of prying into their family drama, so you aren't asking them to sit on a couch and air their dirty laundry.
You are simply asking a logistical question that naturally prompts them to reveal the emotional landmines on their own terms.
It immediately signals to the couple that you are a seasoned professional who understands that seating is a crucial part of the ceremony.
It creates a safe space for them to establish their boundaries without feeling judged at all.
Zooming in on those boundaries almost inevitably brings us to the most complex terrain, the specific landmine that detonates right before the processional begins.
Divorced parents.
This specific dynamic is where mapping out sensitive family realities goes from theoretical to highly actionable.
The fatal mistake officiants continually make is assuming someone else, like a planner, a well-meaning aunt, or the couple themselves, wrote down a viable seating chart for this.
The couple often knows the non-negotiables perfectly in their own heads.
They know exactly who cannot make eye contact with whom, but if they haven't translated that internal knowledge into a format someone else can execute, the plan is useless.
The moment a conflict arises, that tacit knowledge doesn't help anyone standing in the aisle.
The scenarios you have to map out are incredibly nuanced, requiring you to think outside the traditional wedding playbook.
Looking at the actual geometry, you have to ask if there are strict side assignments required.
Do the biological parents need to sit on opposite sides of the aisle, even if that completely shatters the traditional bride side versus groom side rules?
You might have a bride who needs her mother on the left and her father on the right, which displaces the groom's family entirely.
Then you have the step-parent dynamics to consider.
Should a step-parent sit with their spouse in the second row, allowing the biological parents to share the first row?
Or, in a highly tense situation, is there a specific scenario where both biological parents are seated in the front row on the exact same side, but with one deliberately empty chair between them?
That empty chair acts as a physical and psychological buffer.
Thinking about bringing this up gives me secondhand anxiety, to be honest.
If I'm sitting with a couple who is already overwhelmed with catering choices and floral budgets, how do you even begin to extract these highly sensitive answers?
It feels like you are poking a sleeping bear, risking a massive wave of pre-wedding stress.
Stripping away the emotional weight of the inquiry and treating it as absolute, unyielding standard protocol avoids poking that bear.
Presenting these questions as a routine part of your workflow, something you ask every single couple, completely normalizes their unique situation.
You run through the exact checklist in a calm, administrative tone.
Are any parents divorced or remarried? Should anyone explicitly be kept apart?
Does anyone expect a front row seat who might not actually receive one?
Are we reserving rows on both sides of the aisle or just one?
Treating this like a standard intake form removes the judgment entirely.
You aren't asking because you think their family is messy. You are asking because you are a professional preparing a public space. And this is simply how the space is built.
The stakes of getting that intake form right are astronomical for the atmosphere of the day.
Our sources make it abundantly clear that there is absolutely no universal one-size-fits-all answer for divorced parent seating.
You can't just look up a diagram in a book and apply it to every family.
There is only the highly specific answer that successfully prevents a very loud, very public argument at 3:55 p.m. right in the middle of the aisle.
Skipping this protocol and convincing yourself that it will all just work out organically means you default into becoming a crisis negotiator.
Suddenly, you are the one standing there in your professional attire, watching the clock tick down, desperately trying to broker peace.
You find yourself negotiating between two adults who haven't agreed on a single thing since 2009.
That is fundamentally not the mindset you want to be in right before you guide a couple through the most important words of their lives.
Escaping that crisis negotiator role is the goal, but we have to face a harsh reality about planning.
Even when you have perfectly calculated every angle of that family geometry, a flawless plan is incredibly fragile in the wild.
It is easily and frequently derailed by the early bird guests who arrive armed with accessories.
This introduces the save seat epidemic, which is a fascinating, deeply frustrating behavioral phenomenon rooted in human psychology.
Guests will arrive 45 minutes early, walk into the pristine, empty ceremony space, and immediately feel a surge of territorial instinct.
They will proceed to claim entire rows, strategically deploying ceremony programs or draping heavy winter jackets.
They drop oversized purses or leave a single lonely scarf stretched across a chair back to claim a block of 6 premium seats.
And those seats are for people who are currently still in their cars in the parking lot.
Watching this unfold is exactly like watching a completely unhinged territorial land grab, and the psychology behind it is wild.
It's driven by anxiety because they don't want to be stuck in the back, and they feel a sense of duty to protect their friends who are running late.
The cascading effect of this behavior is what really ruins your carefully calculated geometry.
Other guests walk into the space, they see these makeshift fabric markers, and they naturally assume those premium seats are legitimately occupied.
So they start filling in the rows immediately behind the reserve section, packing the middle of the room.
Fast forward 30 minutes, and the actual VIPs, the grandparents, the immediate family members, the couple explicitly mapped out, finally arrive.
They arrive 10 minutes before the start time, exactly as they were instructed to do, and there's nowhere for them to sit.
The rows are full, the space behind them is full, and those lovely printed signs sitting on the chairs meant absolutely nothing.
Stress. Oblivious guests holding 2 heavy gift bags will see a jacket and just decide to sit down anyway.
Printed signs alone are entirely insufficient against that level of guest anxiety.
They do not enforce behavior, they merely suggest it. And stressed people ignore suggestions.
To actually protect and enforce your perfectly calculated seating plan, you need a designated seating coordinator or a seating assistant.
You need a living, breathing human being who actively guards the rows that matter.
This person acts as the physical conversational barrier between the couple's carefully laid intentions and the guest's primal instincts to grab the best real estate.
Establishing this barrier necessitates what we call the golden rule of the day, a rule that has to be established firmly with the couple in advance.
Reserved rows are held for named guests only, not for blankets, bags, or someone is coming later.
You have to sit down with the couple and explain that the save my seat culture is a direct, active threat to their careful planning.
If they truly want mom and dad to have a stress-free experience walking into those front seats, someone has to push back against the early arrivals.
That pushback has to be kind, it has to be polite, but it must be executed with absolute firmness before the room reaches capacity.
Knowing we need this seating coordinator or seating assistant is the critical first step.
The next and arguably more difficult step is equipping them to succeed in that role without completely overwhelming them.
A flawless seating chart that exists only locked inside the officiant's head is entirely useless to the person actually standing at the end of the aisle.
Similarly, a seating chart buried deep in a 6-week-old email thread helps absolutely no one when the venue doors open and the rush begins.
You need to provide what the industry calls the 90-second usher brief.
The 90-second usher brief is an absolute masterclass in concise, high-pressure communication.
Think about the physical and acoustic environment of a wedding day. It is loud, it is fast-paced, the adrenaline is pumping, and stress levels are incredibly high.
Long, dense paragraphs of instruction completely fail in this environment because the human brain simply cannot process a narrative essay in that moment.
People panic while listening to a string quartet and watching 80 people walk toward them, so their eyes glaze over.
They skim the text and then they start guessing, which is exactly how the groom's second cousin ends up happily seated in the bride's grandfather's chair.
The brief must be ruthless in its simplicity, relying on bullet points, exact names, and clear directional language.
Using language that the entire venue understands intuitively, without needing a compass, is crucial.
Structuring that highly effective brief requires stripping away everything except the absolute essentials.
First bullet, rows 1 and 2 left, bride's parents and grandparents.
Second bullet, rows 1 and 2. Right, groom's mother plus stepfather, and groom's father plus spouse.
You explicitly note right there if there needs to be an empty seat between those groups.
Third bullet is the do not seat pairs, clearly listing the names of individuals who cannot be placed in the same proximity under any circumstances.
Fourth bullet defines the early guests rule, explicitly stating that absolutely no accessories can save seats.
And the final bullet is the hard stop, defining exactly when to cease all seating operations, usually 10 minutes before the processional begins.
This clears the aisle so the VIPs can make their entrance without fighting upstream against latecomers.
Keeping all of this perfectly organized and easily accessible is where your broader ceremony workflow really pays dividends.
You don't want to be hastily scribbling these bullet points on a cocktail napkin 5 minutes before doors open.
We strongly recommend using a dedicated digital system to manage this workflow, integrating your seating strategy into a tool built for wedding professionals.
Building the geometry during the planning phase in a system like You Had Me at ido.app creates a single source of truth.
It allows you to effortlessly generate that clean, readable brief when the time comes.
The true advantage of a system like You Had Me at ido.app is that it allows for highly granular control over information distribution.
Understanding exactly what you publish versus what you must keep strictly private introduces a vital professional distinction.
You must only publish the actionable logistical items for the seating assistant.
They need the row numbers, the VIP names, the side assignments, and the strict do not seat notes.
That is the entirety of their required knowledge, giving them the clarity to execute the physical plan in the moment.
What they absolutely do not need, under any circumstances, is the intense family history that created those rules.
As the officiant, you must act as a vault, keeping the emotional backstories and the tragic reasons why certain people are estranged completely locked down.
Your own internal notes about simmering family tension remain entirely private.
The seating assistant does not need to know a single detail about the explosive Thanksgiving argument of 2018 in order to understand that Uncle Jim cannot sit next to Aunt Susan.
Handing them the emotional backstory only distracts them from their physical task and burdens them with information they aren't trained to handle.
It potentially fuels toxic venue gossip, so you must give them the coordinates, not the drama.
With the plan documented, the privacy boundaries established, and the seating assistant properly briefed, we advance to the final pressure test.
The rehearsal is the critical moment where the theoretical geometry you've built on paper meets the physical reality of the actual venue.
And yet, an astonishing number of couples and inexperienced officiants completely skip over the seating plan during the rehearsal.
They focus entirely on the pacing of the processional, the walking order of the wedding party, and where everyone will stand at the altar.
Ignoring the seating assignments at this stage is a massive, often unrecoverable missed opportunity.
Grounding the couple in the physical space of the venue is the officiant's explicit responsibility.
You have to literally ask them to stop looking at the altar for a moment, turn around, and look directly at the actual physical chairs set up for the ceremony.
Look at the width of the aisles, look at the spacing between the rows, and then ask the 5-second question that can single-handedly save your entire Saturday.
Has anything changed about who sits where since we last talked?
It is such a remarkably simple prompt, but you would be absolutely amazed at how often a couple will stare at those chairs and suddenly remember a major detail.
They might realize a distant cousin was unexpectedly added to the VIP list yesterday, or that a key grandparent had a health issue and is no longer attending.
Catching that subtle shift in the geometry on Friday evening prevents 20 minutes of chaotic, highly visible reshuffling on game day.
Acknowledging the chaotic reality of live events means understanding that even with all this preparation, perfection is an illusion.
What happens on game day if, despite the meticulous planning and the rehearsal pressure test, something still inevitably goes wrong?
An usher might misread the bullet points in a moment of panic, or an incredibly stubborn guest simply ignores the seating coordinator.
They walk right past the barrier and plant themselves in the wrong row anyway.
This scenario is exactly where we must firmly define the true scope of your role at the front of the room.
As the officiant, you are a leader, a guide, and a calming presence. You are not the bouncer.
You do not physically seat guests yourself, and you definitely do not march down the center aisle, microphone in hand, to publicly demand someone vacate a chair.
That shatters the exact emotional safety you were trying to build for the couple.
But you must know the seating plan intimately enough to answer desperate questions with absolute unflappable calm.
If a planner or an assistant comes rushing up to you for clarification at the 20-minute mark, you need to provide the answer instantly.
You do that without adding a single drop of panic to their cup.
If a disruption occurs in those final moments, your singular overriding objective is containment.
Do not allow a localized seating error to escalate into a full-blown ceremony crisis.
If you can quietly fix it, perhaps by subtly catching the eye of a seating assistant and directing a VIP to an adjacent seat, do so instantly.
If a difficult conversation absolutely must happen to remove an entitled guest from a reserved seat, you delegate.
You let the venue planner or a pre-designated thick-skinned family member handle that tense interaction.
Your job in those final moments is to stay anchored, keeping the ceremony environment emotionally safe for the couple waiting in the wings.
You are guarding the tone of the event, not trying to win a petty enforcement battle in front of 90 people.
You are there to ensure the couple can walk down the aisle, take a deep breath, and say their vows without looking out at a sea of simmering resentment and awkward gaps.
Bringing all of these strategies together really highlights that managing the mechanics of seating is never beneath your role as an officiant.
It isn't just event logistics. It is a profound act of professional care.
You dedicate hours of your time to nailing the processional order, perfecting your vocal delivery, and crafting deeply sensitive language for the ceremony script itself.
Protecting the physical space where the couple's most cherished people will sit and experience that script is a direct extension of that exact same care.
When you ask the right questions early, map out the emotional geometry with empathy, and brief the right people effectively, the rope line drama simply vanishes.
It ceases to exist, leaving only the space for a beautiful ceremony as you transform a potential crisis into a seamless, invisible experience.
As we wrap up today, we want to leave you with a final, provocative thought for you to mull over as you prepare for your next event.
If reserved seating is, at its absolute core, about honoring deep relationships and navigating complex human dynamics within a physical space, how might we push the boundaries?
How might we eventually rethink the traditional central aisle layout entirely?
If the vast majority of seating anxiety stems from the rigid hierarchy of front rows versus back rows, and the inherent division of sides, could a radical shift solve this?
Shifting to circular seating or completely non-traditional sweeping row formations could effectively neutralize that tension before the guests even arrive.
We could theoretically eliminate the concept of sides altogether.
And in doing so, we could fundamentally change the emotional landscape and the entire power dynamic of the wedding ceremony.
It is a fascinating spatial problem and certainly something to think about before your next deep dive.
Thanks for listening to Wedding Studio from You Had Me at I Do. For links, resources, episode notes, and anything Mike and Jen mentioned today, visit youhadmeatido.app/podcast. And while you're there, take a look at Studio by You Had Me at I Do, the software built to help wedding pros manage the couple, the wedding, and the business behind it all. Better weddings, better business, less chaos. We'll see you next time on Wedding Studio.